A missile is already in the air, and this time, it may not be stopped. Not a drill. Not a warning. A real launch. March 2026. Tensions between Iran and Israel reach a breaking point.
The United States and Israel are launching airstrikes across Iran. President Trump says the US...
And now, something new has entered the battlefield. One of Iran's most advanced weapons, the Sejjil ballistic missile. A missile built to travel thousands of kilometers, at speeds that push modern defense systems to their limits. And as it begins its descent, there are only seconds left to react. Because this isn't just another missile strike. This is the kind of weapon defenses were never designed to face. So what happens when one finally slips through? Welcome to the War Room Report. Today we're breaking down one critical question. Can Iron Dome actually stop Iran's Sejjil 2 missile? Or are we entering a new era where some weapons simply can't be intercepted? Before we dive in, I want to hear from you. Do you think modern air defense systems are still reliable, or are missiles becoming too advanced to stop? Drop your answer in the comments. Now, let's get into it.
A short time ago,
it all began on February 28, 2026, when the United States and Israeli forces launched a massive coordinated air and missile campaign deep into Iranian territory, targeting military facilities, missile launch sites, and strategic infrastructure. Within hours, the balance of power in the Middle East shifted and a new war had officially begun. Iran did not wait. Within days, its military responded with waves of ballistic missiles and drones fired at targets across the region. From cities inside Israel to U.S. military positions and allied bases in the Gulf. The speed and scale of these retaliatory strikes marked a dramatic escalation in a conflict that had been simmering for years. At first, Iran launched missiles in large salvos, aiming to overwhelm defenses and make a statement that it would not be deterred. Analysts tracking the war estimated that in the opening days, hundreds of ballistic missiles and unmanned aerial vehicles were deployed by Iranian forces, forcing air defense systems across multiple countries into action. Meanwhile, Israel's military campaign, codenamed Operation Roaring Lion, pushed deeper, striking dozens of missile launchers and command centers in an effort to degrade Iran's ability to sustain prolonged attacks. By early March, the battlefield had expanded beyond national borders. Air raid sirens echoed from Tel Aviv to Kuwait City, and air defenses from Jordan to the United Arab Emirates were engaged to intercept Iranian missiles crossing into their skies. What began as a sudden strike had quickly turned into a high-stakes war of offense and defense. One where every missile fired was met with a network of interception systems scrambling to stop it. To understand why the Sejjil 2 is such a game-changer, we need to look back at where it came from. Iran's missile program dates back decades, but what sets the Sejjil 2 apart is its propulsion and design. Rather than relying on traditional liquid fuel, which requires fueling before launch, the Sejjil 2 uses solid propellant in both of its stages. With solid fuel, the missile can remain in a ready state for extended periods, dramatically reducing the time between detection and launch. The Sejjil family of missiles was developed domestically in Iran as part of a long-term effort to modernize its ballistic capabilities. Early versions were tested in the late 2000s, and by May 2009, an upgraded version known today as the Sejjil 2 was successfully test-fired from Iran's central missile ranges. This two-stage design allows the missile to climb higher and travel further than its predecessors. Its estimated range is roughly 2,000 kilometers, meaning it can strike across vast swaths of the Middle East from deep within Iranian territory. The missile itself is massive, over 18 meters long, weighing more than 20 tons, and carried on a mobile launch platform, which allows it to be moved and fired from different locations with relative stealth. Its solid-fuel engines give it a lift-off characteristics that make it harder for enemies to predict or preempt before launch. One of the defining features of the Sejjil 2 is its strategic mobility. Because it doesn't need fueling before launch, it can be deployed quickly, giving very short warning to defenders once it's fired. Traditional ballistic missiles, like those with liquid fuel, require longer preparation and are more vulnerable to detection. Some analysts even suggest that the Sejjil 2's flight profile and design give it the ability to perform limited course adjustments as it descends, confusing air defense radars and interceptors. That reputation has led media outlets to label it a dancing missile. But whether highly maneuverable or not, its combination of range, solid fuel readiness, and mobile launch capability makes it one of the most formidable missiles in Iran's arsenal. In the context of the current conflict, the deployment of the Sejjil 2 represents a shift from strategic deterrence to operational use of long-range ballistic systems, a new layer in the dynamics of missile warfare. To understand how Israel defends itself from aerial threats, you need to know the story of one of the most recognizable air defense systems in the world, the Iron Dome. The Iron Dome was first put into service in 2011, developed by Israeli defense firms with support and funding from the United States. It was created in response to years of rocket attacks from militant groups, designed to protect civilian areas from rockets, mortars and artillery shells that travel short distances and threaten towns and cities. What makes Iron Dome remarkable is how it works. When a projectile is launched toward Israeli territory, an advanced radar system detects and tracks it almost instantly. Sophisticated computers calculate its flight path, determining whether the object is headed toward a populated area or critical infrastructure. If the system judges the incoming projectile to be a threat, it launches a small interceptor missile, known as a Tamir, that steers itself into the target and destroys it in mid-air. Across multiple conflicts over the past decade, from Gaza to the northern border, Iron Dome has engaged thousands of threats. Israeli military sources and defense analysts commonly cite interception success rates of around 85 to 90% against the specific rockets it was built to counter. In these engagements, the system has prevented numerous impacts on populated areas, saving lives and reducing infrastructure damage. But here's where the story takes a turn. Iron Dome was engineered to deal with short-range threats, rockets and projectiles that travel tens of kilometers, not hundreds or thousands. Its radar and interceptors are tuned for engagements within a limited range and flight profile. It is extraordinarily capable within that niche, but it was never designed to stop long-range ballistic missiles that travel far higher, faster, and farther than the threats it was built to counter. That is why Iron Dome is only one layer in a much larger defensive strategy. Israel has added other systems, like David's Sling for medium-range threats and the Arrow series designed to counter high-altitude and long-range ballistic missiles, because modern warfare demands more than a single layer of protection. These additional systems intervene earlier in a missile's flight path and operate at higher altitudes than Iron Dome ever was meant to. So while Iron Dome remains an iconic and important shield over Israeli cities, its real strength lies in its specialization, short-range interception. When the threat is a long-range ballistic weapon, fast and traveling outside the lower atmosphere, Iron Dome alone is simply not equipped for the task. That distinction is critical to understanding the limits of modern air defense and the arms race shaping the future of conflict. To grasp the true challenge facing modern air defenses, we need to understand how ballistic missiles move through the sky. Unlike rockets or drones that fly under power toward their target, ballistic missiles follow a completely different kind of path. After launch, they climb rapidly into the upper atmosphere, sometimes even exiting it entirely, before curving back down toward their destination in what's called a parabolic trajectory. Their flight isn't powered all the way. Most of that path is shaped by gravity and momentum, not by an engine pushing them forward. On the descent, as they re-enter the thicker layers of the atmosphere, their velocity rapidly increases. Many ballistic warheads can be traveling at hypersonic speeds, 5 times the speed of sound or more, before they even get close to the ground. That means a missile fired from deep within Iran can cross the distance to Israel in just minutes, leaving very little time for any defense system to react. These speeds create one of the biggest problems for defenders. Even the most advanced radar systems must first detect the launch, track its flight path, and then calculate an intercept trajectory. All of that happens in a matter of minutes, or even seconds, once a missile begins its final descent. There simply isn't much warning time. But speed isn't the only challenge. Once a ballistic missile is above the atmosphere, normal air defense radars have limited reach. Traditional anti-air systems are designed to track and engage targets within the atmosphere: planes, helicopters, drones, or low-flying cruise missiles. Ballistic missiles fly far above that, climbing into near space before they fall back toward their target, which means the window for interception is narrow, and often outside the effective range of systems designed for short or medium-range threats. That's why when dealing with long-range ballistic threats, specialists talk about layered defense, where different systems work at different stages of flight. Early warning radars and space-based sensors try to spot the launch as soon as it happens. High-altitude interceptors stand ready to engage the missile while it is still rising or just beginning its descent. Lower-altitude defenses are left to mop up anything that slips through. Even with that multi-tiered strategy, the physics of the missile's flight are relentless. A ballistic warhead traveling at hypersonic speed gives defenders only seconds to make decisions. Detect, calculate, launch an interceptor, and hope it can match the timing and position of a target racing downward at thousands of kilometers per hour. Many modern air defense systems can and do succeed in this task, but it remains one of the most difficult missions in military technology. Take a moment to consider this. A missile launched from Iran might be detected almost immediately after liftoff. But by the time radar systems fix its trajectory and the command center orders an interception, the missile may already be within minutes of impact. There's no slow approach, no long cruise phase, just a fast, steep descent that leaves precious little time for response. And that's the core problem. Air defense systems built for short-range rockets, or even for medium-range threats, aren't optimized for intercepting weapons that can travel outside the atmosphere and then come back down at hypersonic speed. The physics simply doesn't give much margin for error. To deal with ballistic missiles effectively, a defense has to act early, track extremely fast targets far above the Earth, and time intercepts perfectly in a shrinking window of opportunity. It's a game of microseconds, physics, and precision, not just firepower. What most people don't realize is that Israel doesn't rely on just one defense system. In fact, the country has built a multi-layered shield, a series of overlapping technologies designed to stop threats at different stages of flight. At the bottom layer is the familiar system most people think of first, Iron Dome. It was created to intercept short-range rockets and artillery before they can hit populated areas. Its radar detects the launch, computes where the projectile is headed, and fires an interceptor, called a Tamir, to destroy it mid-air. It's quick, agile, and extremely effective within its niche. But Iron Dome isn't meant to deal with everything. Above it, at a higher layer, stands a system known as David's Sling. David's Sling was developed to intercept medium-range threats, missiles that travel farther and faster than the short-range rockets Iron Dome was designed to counter. These medium-range threats can include larger rockets or missiles that are beyond Iron Dome's optimal range, but not as fast or as high as true ballistic missiles. And then at the top layer sits one of the most advanced defensive technologies in the Israeli arsenal, the Arrow system. The Arrow series was specifically built to counter long-range ballistic missiles that climb high into the upper atmosphere before descending at hypersonic speeds. The system's long-range interceptors are designed to hit these threats high above the Earth, giving defense planners more time and space to react. During real conflicts, engineers and defense analysts have observed the Arrow system tracking and engaging missiles at altitudes where traditional defenses cannot reach. These interceptors are designed with powerful sensors and guidance systems capable of identifying and homing in on ballistic warheads far above the flight paths of lower-altitude threats. That's the crucial twist most viewers never hear about. Iron Dome is just one piece of the puzzle, the last line of defense, not the first or the only one. When a ballistic missile is launched, long before it is anywhere near Israeli airspace, long-range radar installations and space-based sensors detect its launch. Those early warnings feed data into higher-tier systems like the Arrow missiles, which can engage threats while they are still on the higher portions of their trajectory. Only if something gets past that high-altitude interception layer does Iron Dome enter the picture, handling the shorter, slower objects that manage to continue toward targets on the ground. In this way, each system plays a distinct role, engaging at a different point along the threat's flight path. This layered approach isn't unique to Israel. It's how modern air defenses are structured, with early warning sensors at the outermost edge, long-range interceptors at the highest layers, and shorter-range systems closer to population centers. But in Israel's case, this design has been honed through decades of conflict and technological refinement. What the Arrow and David's Sling systems represent is a recognition that not all airborne threats are created equal. While Iron Dome excels at protecting cities from short-range barrages, it was never intended to contend with missiles that travel hundreds or thousands of kilometers. That responsibility falls to systems engineered specifically for the job. And that is the twist, the reality behind the headlines. Iron Dome may be the most famous name, but it is only one layer in a much larger shield. And when a long-range missile is involved, the battle for interception happens long before that missile comes anywhere near a rooftop or a street corner. Even the most advanced defense systems in the world are not perfect. Across decades of development, Israel's layered shield has proven incredibly effective against short-range rockets, medium-range missiles, and even some ballistic threats. In conflicts from the Gaza front to the northern border and beyond, air defenses have repeatedly intercepted incoming attacks with high rates of success, often cited between 80 and 90% against the specific threats they were built to handle. But interception rates are never absolute, and the physics of war ensures that some threats still get through. Reports from ongoing conflicts show that even when defenses intercept the majority of incoming missiles and drones, there are times when strikes still reach their targets. In some escalations, Israeli officials have acknowledged that no system can guarantee complete protection. Experts openly discuss how sustained barrages can strain interceptor stocks and test the limits of even the most sophisticated arrays. In real war scenarios, the volume of threats matters as much as the technology. When an adversary fires large numbers of missiles and drones in quick succession, defenders face a race against time, detection, tracking, decision, and intercept. Each interceptor fired depletes a stockpile that cannot be refilled instantly. And every threat that slips past the engagement envelope can cause damage, even if most are stopped. There have been documented phases of conflict where attackers employed saturation tactics, launching missiles and drones together to overwhelm the capacity of air defenses. In those situations, even highly integrated systems can be strained by sheer volume, and some weapons make it through or force defenders to prioritize which targets to engage first, leaving gaps in coverage. Another challenge comes from the diversity of threats. Defending against a wave of small drones requires different sensors and tactics than intercepting a high-speed ballistic missile. Defenses that excel at short-range rocket interceptions, like those once credited with protecting cities against barrages from non-state actors, find themselves pushed to adapt when confronted with hundreds or thousands of mixed threats. That mix can include low-altitude drones designed to slip between radar beams, cruise missiles that fly unpredictable paths, and traditional ballistic missiles that descend at hypersonic speeds. Analysts observing recent engagements have emphasized how this mix can erode the efficiency of any single defensive layer, requiring the entire network to react and compensate in real time, a challenge as much logistical as technical. Even when interceptors succeed in hitting incoming threats, not all danger vanishes. Missile debris, falling shrapnel, and shockwaves from destroyed warheads can still cause secondary damage on the ground. In many historic engagements, the defense network's success in intercepting most threats still left behind a trail of destruction, from broken windows to damaged infrastructure and, at times, tragic loss of life. These incidents remind observers that interception is not a guarantee of safety, but a reduction of risk. A further strain on defenses comes from interceptor supplies themselves. Modern interceptor missiles, the projectiles fired to destroy incoming threats, are expensive and cannot be generated with the press of a button. Extended campaigns of defense can deplete stockpiles, requiring resupply from allied partners or production lines struggling to keep pace. When the tempo of attacks grows intense, the sustainability of defense becomes a question of economics and logistics as much as engineering. Under sustained pressure, even layered systems can find themselves stretched thin, forced to make hard decisions about where and how to allocate limited interceptors. Throughout history's major conflicts, no air defense system has ever achieved perfection. Against overwhelming odds or sheer numbers, some threats leak through. And in the evolving dynamics of modern warfare, where ballistic missiles, drone swarms, and cruise attacks can arrive in mixed salvos, that inevitability is made clearer than ever. So while interception rates may climb toward impressive percentages, the truth remains. Even 80 or 90% effectiveness still means some threats get through. And when defenders are faced with hundreds of incoming weapons, it only takes a few penetrations to change the course of a day or a war. For decades, the balance of power in the Middle East has revolved around deterrence, the idea that the threat of overwhelming retaliation prevents open warfare. But now, as ballistic missiles proliferate, that balance is shifting. Iran possesses one of the largest ballistic missile arsenals in the region. Its inventory includes a range of systems capable of reaching neighboring countries, from short-range systems designed for battlefield use to medium and long-range missiles capable of striking deep into Israel's territory from within Iran. These weapons have become central to Tehran's military strategy, not just tools of war but instruments of deterrence and regional influence. Since the onset of sustained hostilities in early 2026, Iranian military rhetoric and demonstrated capability have underscored this shift. Launches of ballistic missiles and long-range unmanned aerial vehicles, combined with missile tests and exercises, send a clear message. Iran can threaten strategic targets over hundreds or even thousands of kilometers. This reality has sparked widespread discussion among defense analysts, who see Tehran's arsenal not just as a threat in combat, but as a geopolitical lever. From the perspective of Iran's leadership, these missiles are more than weapons, they are statements of power. In the complex web of alliances and rivalries across the region, possessing long-range strike capability allows a state to influence events far beyond its borders. Iran's missile force is integrated into its broader strategy of deterrence aimed at regional powers and external forces alike. In this context, each test, each deployment, and each flight path drawn across the sky is a message to adversaries and allies alike. Iran has the means to respond if challenged. This dynamic has pushed neighboring countries to reassess their own defenses. Nations once content with modest air defense networks are now investing in multi-layered systems designed to counter a fuller spectrum of threats, from drones and short-range rockets to long-range ballistic missiles. Defense planners are asking different questions. How fast can we detect a launch? How high can we intercept a warhead? How can we ensure that no single point of failure jeopardizes national security? Recent conflicts around the world demonstrate that modern warfare is becoming a race, a technological contest between faster missiles and smarter defenses. As offensive systems gain range, speed, and complexity, defenders must innovate faster, pushing radar systems, interceptor missiles, and command control technologies to their limits. What was once considered cutting-edge can rapidly become obsolete in the face of a new generation of ballistic and hypersonic threats. This reality has implications far beyond Israel and Iran. Across Eurasia, multiple states are developing or acquiring long-range strike capabilities. Ballistic missiles, once the exclusive domain of major powers, are now widespread, affecting deterrence models, alliance structures, and strategic doctrines. In this new era, possessing a missile force is seen not only as a military asset, but as a currency of power. But the spread of long-range missiles also raises unsettling questions about escalation and risk. Where once an army stood face-to-face with an adversary on the battlefield, now thousands of kilometers can separate launch point from target. This distance creates a paradox. The ability to strike from afar could deter war, but it also increases the risk of miscalculation. A missile fired in one direction could be interpreted as a prelude to invasion or nuclear escalation, prompting rapid and possibly unintended responses. In the midst of these tensions, the role of air defense has never been more crucial, nor more challenging. Interceptor systems, layered defenses, and early warning radars are all part of a broader effort to protect civilian populations and strategic infrastructure. But even the most sophisticated defenses can only do so much against the laws of physics and the ingenuity of offense. What the world is witnessing today is a transformation in the character of conflict. One in which speed, range, and technology shape strategy as much as ideology or territory. And in this transformation, every missile launched, every interceptor fired, and every command decision made is part of a larger, unfolding narrative about the future of warfare itself. So, after everything we've explored, the physics of ballistic flight, the layered defense networks, and the dynamic reality of modern conflict, the question still stands. Can Iron Dome stop Iran's Sejjil 2 missile? The clear answer from defense experts and military assessments is this: on its own, no. The Iron Dome system was engineered for a specific purpose: to intercept short-range rockets, mortars, and similar threats that travel at slower speeds and lower altitudes. It has proven itself over years of real combat, routinely intercepting hundreds of targets fired from nearby battlefronts. Its radar, fire control systems, and Tamir interceptors all work in concert to protect urban centers from short-range bombardments. But the physics and strategy of long-range ballistic missiles are an entirely different challenge, one that Iron Dome was never designed to meet. This conclusion reflects widely accepted analysis of the roles and capabilities of Israel's air defense layers. But that does not mean Israel is defenseless. Far from it. The real strength of Israel's missile defense lies in its multi-layered architecture, where Iron Dome occupies only the bottom layer. Above it, systems like David's Sling bridge the gap, engaging medium to long-range rockets and cruise missiles. And at the very top sits the Arrow family, designed to detect and intercept ballistic threats high above the atmosphere, giving defenders the earliest possible chance to neutralize such weapons before they descend. These systems are not perfect, but in recent conflicts they have been credited with successfully engaging dozens or even hundreds of incoming threats. Analysts have repeatedly noted that these layers, when working in sync, have prevented far more impacts than would have occurred with a single defense layer alone. Even so, the combined deployment of Iron Dome, David's Sling Arrow interceptors, and supporting radar networks still cannot guarantee 100% protection. No defense can. Speed, trajectory, timing, and sheer numbers all work against defenders when an attacker launches sophisticated ballistic missiles. In some engagements, defense systems have been overwhelmed temporarily, or individual warheads have penetrated layers of protection before interceptors could engage. This is not a failure of technology. It is the reality of complex warfare where offense and defense continually push each other to new extremes. In other words, Iron Dome alone cannot appear on the radar screen, lock on, and stop a Sejjil 2 ballistic missile the way it stops short-range rockets. But when integrated within a layered network, complemented by David's sling at mid-range and arrow interceptors at long range, including emerging technologies like directed energy lasers being added to the mix, it contributes to a broader shield that significantly increases the odds of intercepting incoming threats. So the truth lies in nuance, not absolutes. Iron Dome by itself isn't enough. But as part of a sophisticated, multi-tiered air defense umbrella, it plays a vital role in reducing the danger posed by modern missile threats. In the evolving landscape of missile warfare, it is not a single system that determines safety. It's how every layer works together to protect lives and infrastructure. If you want clear, fact-based breakdowns of modern warfare, missile technology, and global conflicts, then make sure you don't miss what's coming next. Subscribe now and join the War Room Report community, where every missile launch, every defense system, and every geopolitical shift is analyzed in detail, giving you the insights that mainstream coverage often misses. Stay informed, stay ahead, and never miss the story behind the headlines.